Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm giving you a complete beginner Dynamo for Revit course all in one video. If you're new to Dynamo, this tutorial will teach you how to automate tasks, build simple scripts, and create smarter workflows inside of Revit 2026. You're going to go more into the discussion of how to create it, how it all gets started. So the very first thing that I'm doing here is I am going to show you a actual completed script that I've done so long ago. And this was just actually for 3D rooms that I did when I wanted to also bring rooms into Navisworks because 3D names are just not there. So here's a script that's actually already put together just so you guys can see what this actually looks like, how I have all grouped. And I got everything here just nice and organized. And then I got also simultaneously a just random project over here. So look, just so you guys know what I'm talking about. And I got a floor plan here. See, look, so right now what you're going to see is I got these rooms and these spaces. And don't worry, I'm going to go through all this from scratch. And you can see right here, basically that you're seeing here, hey, look. Here's all the spaces, here are all the rooms. And what you're going to see in real time is me going ahead and saying, hey, look. All right. Now, look, as you can see here, what did it do? So now if I go back over here to 3D rooms, you will now see all that information that I have in here. So what I did is I showed you a graph. All right. I showed you what it looked like already, and I have it right here. And then also, too, I showed you in action of it actually going through the command and automating the process of doing 3D rooms, right? The whole purpose of visual scripting is to automate tasks that either take a long time or is not there. That is the power of utilizing something what we call visual scripting. All right, so right now you see a visual scripting, and then also we're going to go over the Dynamo player in another tutorial, or even maybe this one. But it just kind of shows you and wraps up this entire series of being able to go ahead and talk about the user interface that I talked about in my other video, and then also go through the process of going into everything else. So what I'm going to do is make sure that you guys have all this information in the description below, either in my Patreon link, so you guys can have access to all this information where we're going to have cheat sheets, we're going to have sample models, we're going to have all the different families so you guys can kind of follow along. The very first thing that we're going to do going over this script that we're getting ready to go over is understanding what it takes to do certain things. Okay, and what I mean by that is we're going to utilize a family in a generic model category. So the very first thing that I want you guys to do while you're having it open is I want to go over to where it says file. Everything we're going to do is create from scratch. And so this is going to go ahead and say new, and then we're going to hit family. And what we're going to do right now is now I want you to go down to where it says generic. So type G, and we are going to now say, hey, this is going to be a generic model, as you can see right here. And let me just go back. And if you're in a different file set and you want a different file altogether, and then you're international. So if I just come back here to say family templates, as you can see right here, you can see all the different templates that you have going forward, okay? So obviously this is really, really important. Ours is going to be an English Imperial. Now, if you were going to be international, it would just say English or any one of these be in metric. So just so you guys understand that everything else is going to be in metric and we're the only ones that is going to be in Imperial. So I go over here, like I said before, I'm going to type G, and I'm going to go to generic model. All right. So now that I've done that, I'm going to be now, we call it a family editor. As you can see right now, it's still a separate part of Revit, as you can see over here. And right now we're in the reference plane, which is good, by the way. And then now that we're in here, we are going to hit something. Okay, we're going to say, okay, cool. Let's just make sure that right up here at the top that we are in the right categories and types. So in this case right now, you're going to see it says family category and parameters once you click on that. All right. And all this is basically going to say is that, hey, this is what we tell Revit, how we're going to classify the different families that come into the model. The models, all they consist of Revit families. Okay. So that is the important key to understand. Right now we are in a subset creating a family, and then we're going to load it back into the project that we are currently going to create. All right. So in this case right now, we are going to go ahead and just do this right now. It's a generic model, and we are going to go ahead and hit OK. All right, so now that we're there, we're going to hit something where it says model text right up here at the top. I want you to go ahead and click on that. Now, this whole thing about model text, you're going to see right here, it's just going to be, just put this right here. It's just going to have a text right there. And then look, it's going to come in and says model text. So what we're going to do is just kind of try to make sure it's in the middle. And then once it's here, what I want you to do is I want you to click on this, and it's going to say the text and how you want it to read. In our text for this particular thing, we want this to read that this is going to be center. All right. So now that we do that, And then we're going to go ahead and hit Control C. And now I'm going to hit Control V. And then all we're going to do is the same thing. All right. Now, in these two names, they're going to be a part of the same thing. So if I click on one, it says Model Text 1. If I click on another one, it's Model Text 1. Super important. All right. So now when I click on this, it says Model Text. Now I want you to go over here to the right side, and I want you to see over here where it says Model Text. Well, in this case, what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and click the room. Well, actually, I want you to click these three dots over here. Hard to see, click in his corner. And in that one, I want you now to go ahead and say, and what we're doing is we're creating a parameter. So that way, once it comes into Revit, that way we can have this already set up. So when it comes in, now it acts and functions the way we actually want it to. So now what I want you to type in is name. Flies in. All right, cool. So now if you go in here now, what you'll see is you go by name, you see these three dots, you'll see that it says name. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say, I want to go ahead and click on this one. And like I said, this is just going to be for example. And we're going to go ahead and this one, we're going to say number. Okay, cool. So now it's all center, everything's good, but I want to make sure when it has number, there you go. All right, so now that is name and number, okay, and it says that you have family right here. We know it's on a genetic model. What I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and I want you to save this. All right, in this case, save this. I'm going to save this to my desktop. All right, and I'm going to just call this 3D rooms. All right, room underscore, let's see, room and number. All right, tags. I'm going to save my location. Cool. All right, perfect. So now what I've just done is create a family. All right. So that's perfect. This is all I wanted to do is create this family. As you can see right here, it says 3D room, number, tags. Okay. So once you follow along, now we're going to close out this editor. And what I want you to do is go over to where it says view. All right. And I want you to, what's called close and active view. So that way now you only have one view for the family. And now I want you to go ahead and hit close. All right. So now you have just now done one step collective. So we're going to recap this. What we have done so far is we've opened up the family editor. And what we have done is create a family using generic model text under generic model, right? We have now adjusted the text so we can use it. And we have mapped the parameters for name and numbers. So when it comes into the Revit project, that way now it's going to be able to control by a parameter versus it just being able to type in there by itself. So we can control it with the script. So that's what we've covered. That's what we've done. Each step that we go along, we're going to do everything from scratch so you can follow along with all the sample information, the sample files. I just want to make sure the guys that from a beginner standpoint, you'll be able to get this information slowly and easily so that way you can master all these things, because once we do the full assembly, it's all going to make sense. Welcome back. The next thing that we're going to do is talk about or create the new file that we need for the project. So what we're going to do is be in a blank Revit 2026 file. Remember, everything that we're doing here is going to be a 2026.4. Make sure that you're in that specific Revit. If you don't know how to get there, just go over to your Revit under your manage, and then you can go into product updates and you'll see the latest one that should be there for the 2026.4. Only reason why we're saying that is because there's a big core difference with the Dynamo engine. So that's why we're trying to make sure that we can be on the same page. So we're doing all the same stuff. I don't want you coming back to me later saying, man, guess what? It doesn't work. And sometimes it's because we're on different versions. And you know how it is with Autodesk and these different versions and dots and everything else. So with that being said, let's go ahead and go to where it says new. And what we're going to do here is that we are just going to use a random project. And for all my international people who are going to be watching this, if you just hit browse, well, now if you just back on out, just say the templates, guess what? You can use all these different templates here. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that we are making sure that our entire audience is now being kept up to speed. All right. So let me just back on up out of here for a second. And we're just going to go ahead and hit new project. So I'm just go over here again, hit new, and then we're going to say Imperial, multi-discipline, and then we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And so now that we're doing this and starting a new project, remember, because you're a beginner, we need to do everything from scratch to make sure that we are mindful of what you guys are doing and how you're doing it. So now that we are on this project, okay, and then you might say, okay, well, why am I opening up the project? Because you need to open up a blank project. We can do it also with regular files too, but I want you to open up the blank project from scratch. So that way we understand that we are doing this together. All right. Not separate, but together. So now that we have it open, we are going to go ahead and create some things. Okay. So we're going to L1 architectural floor plan. And what first thing we're going to do is create some walls. And we're going to go ahead and hit architectural or WA. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. And then now that I got that, okay, I'm gonna go over here to where it says square. And then randomly, I'm just gonna go ahead and just draw, click once, pull all the way to the right. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, okay, I'm gonna click now again, second time. And now that I'm in there, I'm gonna hit escape twice. And so now that I got the exterior walls, now I'm gonna go back, walls, and now I'm gonna draw smaller walls. So I'm just go ahead and go across once. And then I can still stay in the command. I'll come down here. And then I can still just draw over here, stay in my command, and just snap a couple of other walls. And I'm only doing this just to go ahead and create a couple of rooms that we can identify. All right. And boom. All right. So all I did is just click on the walls command, click it once, and then it'll allow me to go to track any walls I want. You don't have to do it all perfectly. You just want to go ahead and just say, hey, these are. Now, if you're still watching this video and you haven't subscribed, we got a problem. In order for me to keep dropping these jewels and these gems for this transformation, I need you to like, subscribe, and share. All right, let's get back to the video. We're all in here. And so the room size and everything else, they can all just be different sizes. You just want to connect to these different walls. And you may say, okay, well, how do I know that all these things are connected? You will go up here to this 3D house. You go ahead and click on this. And now you got those two. And then what I want you to do is type WT. And guess what? Now you've got a split view. Come on now. If you're going to be Revit and you're going to be watching any of my tutorials, just understand that I'm always going to be pushing you guys to work in multi-layered views, meaning that you're going to always be in a parametric engine. So we're going to treat this as a parametric. And a parametric engine just means that I can be in multiple views at the same time, seeing the work change in both views. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is go back over here and we are now going to create rooms. So I'm gonna go back up in here while I'm in the architecture tab and I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, let's go ahead and click rooms. Okay. And now I'm gonna go ahead and hit click this. And now you will see rooms that are created. It's gonna say upper limit level 1, 10 foot. And what I'm gonna do is now it's gonna say, I can go ahead and click all these and it's going to tag on placement is there. And I'm going to just click on that. Well, guess what? It now created the rooms that I wanted. As you can see here, if I scroll in out with the mouse, here are all those rooms that we just created from scratch. So important, okay? Because these are the things that we want to go ahead and make sure that we have in the project. Okay. So let me go over here to where it says schedule working. Let me see here. And as you can see, you got the view list, level schedules. Let me see if I got a room schedule. And as you can see over here, I already got a room schedule. So look, I'll go over here to room finish schedule. And as you can see here, look what else I just created. All right. So now it gives me, let me close this out so you guys can see it again. And if I go over here to schedules, you'll go ahead and see that we have what we call a room finish schedule. I want you to double click on that. All right. Now I want you to click into this left view where the 3D view is, and I want you to hit WT again. All right. So now what you should see is 3 views. Come on now. This is the way we're going to do it. We are going to make sure that all this information is good. And anytime you click just your middle mouse button in each view, you activate it. So I'm going to zoom into this one right quick so you can see the room name. We're going to talk about parametric right quick. And then I'm going to show you the power of it. So now if I come back over here to room name, look, there we go. So now look. Each one of these, look at this. Look at the power of parametric. If I click on the different rooms, it's going to highlight based on what room it is. So in this case, in level 1, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is going to be, I'm going to just say trash. There we go. I'm going to say, and this one's going to be electrical, but I'll just say elect. First cap. I'm just go ahead and type plumbing. All right. We're going to go ahead and say HVAC. Okay. I'm going to say fire protection. Cool. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and say lighting, right? And then we're going to go ahead and we'll just say a corridor. All right. So now what we've done is we come back over here. I click on it. Look at all the room names that have been updated based upon this. All right. So now what we've done is we just created a walls. We put spaces in here. And even if I click on this, you see how it's already telling me the height, it's telling me the area, perimeter, a lot of information that's telling me also the information that's already in here. Okay. So all this is super, super important. If I wanted to, I could put finishes and anything else in these columns as well. All right. Departments and utilize the data for a lot of different information. So now that that's done, okay. That means that we've gotten all the project going together. We've got the walls with the geometry. We've got a schedule that's already pre-built that we just typed all the names in. And then we also made sure that we verify that it's here. Okay. Now these are all different steps we're doing all at the same time to make sure you guys follow along. Make sure we have all the information in the description for everything that you see here. So I want you guys to follow along so we make sure we got this under control. Cool? All right. So once we got this wrapped up, the very first thing I want you to do from this standpoint is I want you to save this project. All right, you will just save as this project and just click over here. And then, like I said before, it may take you to a default folder, but just put it wherever you know that you're working in your different folders. All right, and just from that standpoint, just say, hey, cool, I'm gonna just project this, and I'm just gonna say, in this case, I'm gonna say project underscore, all right, Dynamo. All right, cool. Just make sure it's somewhere that you have saved and you're good to go. Okay. So now that that step is done, once you guys save this entire file, what we're going to do now is we're going to bring in and load in the family that we just created earlier. All right. So now what I'm going to do is go, it says insert. And so once I do the insert tab, I'm going to go load family. It's going to look for the family that I need. And what we say here is going to be this family. And then it's called 3 room number tag. So now I've just loaded that into the project. So that's super duper important to do, because now with all this information here, the project is ready. Well, guess what step we have not covered just yet? We have not covered the Dynamo part. You're probably looking like, man, when are we going to get to that point? We are about to get to it right now. All right. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to create our first Dynamo script from scratch. So the very first thing that we're going to do right now is we are going to open up, or no, start new. We're going to do a new model. And then once we do a new model in 2026, then we're just going to pick multi-discipline, and we are going to get ready to get started. Now, I know a lot of you may not have ever touched Dynamo before or used Revit, and this may seem advanced, but trust me, it is not. And the way we're going to break it down and explain it to you so you guys know it's not. But it can be intimidating if you think about it, for the first time. Trust me, that's what I did. When I first went over here to want to use Dynamo, I was like, man, I don't know anything about visual scripting. But because I dared to do something that, I needed to do so I can automate a lot of the stuff that I was doing in Revit, which was taking up forever. Then I said, well, you know what? It cannot hurt but try. So what I want you guys to do is go to the Manage tab. And then once you go over to the Manage tab, I want you to go over to where it says Dynamo. I want you to go ahead and click on that for your visual programming. Because I don't know about you, but I was spending so much time just doing crazy, ridiculous tasks. I mean, from doing sections, levels, floor plans, just all sorts of things that just took so much time, to the point where it's like, you know what? I'm not even designing anything. I'm just now becoming an overpaid drafter. And so, you know what? I said, hey, there's got to be a better way. I've got to be able to automate the things that I'm doing. So that was what really kickstarted my journey of wanting to learn Dynamo. And for that matter, any different automations, including AI as well, too, that we will be covering that as well in other videos. Now that we have Dynamo open, we are going to go ahead and hit new. And once this is open, I want to make sure you go down all the way over here to where it says manual, because we do not want this script to run before we can put all these things together. And so what you're going to now do is see a blank workspace, and you're going to say, hey, well, you know what? All right, I got this workspace and now I'm in Revit. Okay. How does this relate back to what I'm doing in Revit? Well, here, let me pull this down. As you can see that you have both of these open at the same time. So whatever you're going to do, move back. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to keep these two open at the same time. And we're going to kind of explain how you're going to utilize both. Okay. So look, whether you got 2 screens that you can dock this to, or you got 1, I'm just showing you that this is still going to be active inside of your project as well. Now you got to ask yourself what it is that you're trying to do. Now, in our case, what I'm going to be showing you to do right now is about 3D rooms. So if I'm talking about 3D rooms and I need to get that information from a 3D room, there's a couple components that I'm going to need. And so the components that I'm going to need to make sure that this information is right where I need it, I got to ask myself, what is it that I'm going to use? Okay. Because if you are going to use anything like visual scripting, you have to understand that it has to be intentional. So what I want you guys to do is just understand what it is that we're doing, right? So in this case, we are going to go ahead and say, all right, I need to get information in the rooms, and then I need to get information out of the rooms. So how am I going to do that? So what I'm going to do is 2 ways we can do it. You have a search bar, and then you have I can go over to the screen itself and then right click, and it has a search here as well. All right. Now to me, it makes me faster to do it with the right click on the screen, but you can do it however you want to do it. So when we talk about intentions, the very first thing that you want to do is ask yourself, if I was in Revit and I wanted to go ahead and find something, right? Everything is always grouped based upon what? Categories. So the very first thing I want to do right now is I want to right click the screen and I want to go ahead and type categories. So what does that mean? That means now that I can go ahead and figure out what am I trying to control? What information am I trying to automate? So the very first thing you want to ask yourself is, okay, cool. So I know Revit. So that means if I'm using visual scripting for Revit, then I need to understand that, okay, what am I trying to control? What information I'm trying to automate? So the very first way you do that is you go ahead and say, hey, categories. And as you can see right here, you're going to get a yellow dot to say that you have not saved your work. Periodically, while we're going to do this, this is going to go away if you save, but it's just to let you know if you got any outstanding elements or things that you've done to save your work. I'm not going to do it right now, but it's important just to see it anyway. All right. So now I'm going to go to categories. And so the very first thing I'm going to do is just type rooms. Okay. Because that's what I'm looking for. Remember we talked about that? We talked about categories. So now I got to determine where all of the information I'm looking for the rooms, right? Am I just looking for one room? Or am I looking for all the rooms? So in this case, I'm looking for all the rooms. So I'm going to say all categories. All right. Elements of room. So now look, and as you can see right here, I got rooms. Now I can say, okay, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to connect this, right? And what these are called nodes. And the reason that I'm connecting these two things is because I want all the elements of the room, because I'm looking to extract information outside of that. And so an input information inside of it. So the very first thing that I want to do here is just make sure that I am dictating this. Now, before we even go further, the other thing that I want you guys to do is I want you to understand about groups. So we're using Dynamo. The biggest thing that we're going to do is make sure that this is organized, that people can follow anything that we're doing. And the reason why I say that, whether you're in Dynamo or you're in Revit, your best attribute to be good, especially as a beginner, is to be organized. Okay. Because if you're not organized and not very well thought out, then imagine somebody coming behind you trying to do the work and they can't even follow what you're doing because you're not well organized. Well, the organization I'm talking about inside of Dynamo is going to be called groups. And so I want you to go ahead and left click and drag and highlight both of these. And what I want you to do is I want you to hit Control G. Now, once you hit Control G, guess what? Now I've created this group. Now it kind of just gets your information organized. So like if I double click this, I can say, hey, I want to get rooms, get all room information. All right. So now you understand exactly why I'm creating this node. And if I wanted to, I can put a description right here. I'm gonna just get rid of that right now. And then these three dots I have right here, if I click on that, now I have a group style. And this is what I love about using Dynamo. Now I am organizing and letting you know if someone comes behind me, what my inputs and outputs are be. So in this case, what I'm going to do is this is going to be my group style of inputs. All right. And so this is just important as we go along to make sure that we group. I really think this is powerful for our information that we're trying to go. Okay. So now that we got this information here, now I need the room locations. Okay. I need the information to tell me the room locations of the thing that I'm trying to extract and trying to input. So in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and right click again. Now I'm going to do room. All right. Dot location. All right. I want you to see that right there. Okay. Because now when we're in these rooms, we got to make sure that this information is good, because it's so important when you're in a room to now figure out, okay, what am I actually doing? All right. How is this actually going to work? And the way that this is going to work is just making sure that this is going. Now, one thing I didn't do when I told you to open this, give me a second here, because in the previous videos, we should have already created this portion over here. So let me close this out. All right. And the project that we should have already, and there you go. So I wanted to do that. I'm going to kind of go back over again, but I already had a previous project that I want to go ahead and open back up. And this is the one that's supposed to be for the video. And the reason that being said is because I want to make sure that this is already accounted for, because when we start to build these scripts, and we'll build it right back, we want to make sure it's active. So what I mean by that is look, I want to make sure that everything is active for the project that we just created. All right, which I did already, but I want that to be, the case from the video. So let me just go ahead and just get that deleted. And I want this to be while I'm doing the work. All right. And so I like to have schedules open. I like to have this open at the same time, and then I want you to hit WT. I want all these things to be open while we do this Dynamo script, so that way when we go ahead and create it and we run it, it's going to take the information that we've already done in the previous videos. All right, so let's go back to manage. Let's go to Dynamo, and then we're going to go back and start creating the scripts anyway, just like we just talked about. And I'm going to go ahead and hit new. Okay. And then I'm going to go back and do the same thing. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go categories like we talked about. All right. And then we're also going to do right click again. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to say all elements of category. All right. And then what I'm going to do here is make sure that's set the rooms. Just type in rooms. All right. Then I'm going to connect this node to this node. As you can see, it's active. And when it's not active, this will be red. All right. And as you can see, the information come through. Look, this is all the information here. See that? And then when you hover over here, it'll do this. It's pulling that information. All right. So now I'm going to do room location. Let's right click, type room location. Dot. All right. There we go. Look at that. All right. You see how it's red right here? So now I can go ahead and I'm just connecting these nodes, right? So the first 3 nodes are good. And then we're going to select these 2 right here. And we're going to go ahead and say like we're going to group again. We're going to select Control G. And we're just going to say room information. All right. So now that that's gone, we're going to go ahead and hit 3 dots. Then we're going to come down here to the group style and say inputs. So we got that already out the way. Well, remember, so now we got to ask ourselves, when we're getting ready to go ahead and get this information, there's a couple things we're looking for already. All right. And also make sure we switch this again back to manual, because we do not want this running automatically, so that way it runs the script as we're trying to do this. So the first thing that we're doing here is switch this back to manual so we can run it when we need to, not when it wants to run itself. Never run on automatic. So we got to ask ourselves, guys, okay, we're doing this. We opened up the project that we already were starting with already, right? We got this well organized. What are we trying to do here? There's a couple things. One, like I said, we're trying to go ahead and get all the information from the rooms. We know the room location, right? Then you're going to see this over here. It says points. Okay. Just so you know, in Revit, we are now trying to get this crosshair. That's going to be called a point. All right. And that is so important because that's the information that we're going to be putting in here. And that's the locations. Okay. But now we got to ask the question again. What information are we looking to use to extract this information out? In this case, we are looking for the room name. Remember, we're doing 3D tags of the rooms anyway, right? So we need to create the naming convention that we can extract out for these rooms. So what I want you to do at this moment is I want you to go over into the search bar. I want you to type in code. It should come up at the top. It says code block. All right. And everything you want. I never use this right here. I always type anything in search. It's just such an automated, easier way of what it is that I'm doing. So now that that's done, I'm going to move this out the way. So that goes away. And then let's see here. All right. And now that I got that gone, now I just want to make sure that I'm doing this so I don't lose any of my work. I'll go ahead and I'm going to say save as. Just put it where you need to put it. And this is what I'm going to call it right here, 3 rooms tags practice. And since I already made this already, I'm going to go ahead and do a V2 and hit save. All right. So now the other cool thing about this is that you need 2 of these. So I want you to Control C after it's highlighted and then Control V. Well, there you go. You can now make 2 of them. I want you to put one underneath each other. And then very important to understand, as you're doing this, make sure you understand that when we're doing codes and putting information in, we have to make sure that they have nomenclatures so that way it can be read. So watch this. Very important. I'm going to hold shift and now I'm going to put in the information that I'm looking for. So in this case, I'm looking for name and number. So I'm going to do capital N. All right. Quotations. All right. Now watch when I click out here. Watch what it does. You see what it did? Now it gave me the strings. Same thing here. All right. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go ahead number. Okay. That. Same thing again here. Look, now I've got name and number. These are the information that I'm looking to extract. Super important to make sure that we're looking for this. The next thing I'm looking to do is I need to understand what information I'm looking to get from here. Okay. Because remember, we're saying that we're going to put information that we've already created into something. So the other thing I need to do is family type. See, these are all things still using from Revit. So I'm gonna right click and I'm going to just type family types. And the reason that I have to direct what's actually going to go to this visual scripting. And what's going to this visual scripting is going to be a generic family that's going to get pushed to the room. So the very first thing I had to do, open up an existing project, is look for my 3D tags. So you go in here and you just type 3D. And look, what's the first thing that comes up? There's your tag right there. So you have to understand that once we're building this parameters and these nodes, it's still common language into Revit. It's just a visual programming of it versus thinking about like a Python script. Okay. And so now that we've got this information going, now I can see that look, it tells me I have new information. It tells me when I hover over it, the time frame. Okay. So now I still need to get this information extracted from the code block. So now I need the elements to get parameter by value name, which is this and this. So now I'm going to go ahead and say get. Okay. And this one's going to be back up. I'm going to say element. You see, and also too, it also wants to help you as you start typing. And I'm going to say, hey, get, and then you're going to say right there, boom. All right. I'm going to do a form from here. All right. And I'm going to do one for here. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to make another one. So Control C, Control V. And right here now I'm getting this information going because now it has to say, hey, how are you going to get this information out of here? And now you can see this is the information that I'm about to get out of here. So it's super important to really, really see how this is going so far. So far, we should be in a good pace. We're almost done. We're not too far away. And we're just making sure this information now gets done. Now, we need to make sure, how do we get this information there? So now we got to say family instance by point for this room to match here. So let's do that. Type in right click. Okay. And then we're going to say, hey, family instance, and this is going to be dot by point. All right. And so now this information is going to come over here, right? We connect that there. And now you're going to see over here, this tag up here is now going to take that. So there you go. As you can see here, you can see all this information going to these different rooms. And this is how we're going to start connecting these nodes. And you may say, okay, well, why did you connect those nodes and not the other nodes? Okay, because that doesn't make sense. Well, one, I had to make sure that the 3D tag now was being input into the area of the location of the room that we want. That's what you're seeing over here that's highlighted. And now also the family type, now I'm setting this room location. So now I've gotten that instance going. And now I got the variables from here. So that look, so now I got this coming down to elements. I'm going to tag this over here. Do this. You see that? Now I'm going to get the elements over here. Perfect. And then I got the parameter name. Perfect. And now I've got a flow of information that is now being housed. Okay. So that is really, really important to see how all this is being now put together. Look, and if you want to be clean, you can kind of line them up. Okay. And now look, now I can go ahead and say this is going to be another parameter and just go ahead and say Control G. And now look, now I can say this is name and number information. All right, there we go. Same thing here. So now I can go here and put this. I can go ahead and click those dots. I can do a group style and I can say, hey, this is going to be an action. All right, so look, now you see I'm doing the same things here. I'm still putting information. I'm grouping everything. We're doing really, really good. We're almost down here to the last parts of it. And now, okay, cool. It says we got everything grouped. Now we want to go ahead and say, okay, what's next? Then we're going to go get element set parameter by name. So now I want to go ahead and then right click and I want to go element. I'm going to do 2 of them. Okay. Let me go back, make sure it's type sensitive. And now, like I said before, this may be intimidating once you first get started, but after you've created a couple of them and understand what it is that you need, set element by here, then let's go ahead. It should be, there you go. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and Control C because we need 2 of them, Control V. And as you can see here, now we are getting going. All right, so we got the information, family instance. Now it's saying, hey, this is how the information gets pulled back. Okay, and so this is super important because now when we have all this information that you can see here, now we just got to tie these all in. So far, so good. You see all this stuff, and I'm gonna go over here for a second. I'm gonna just make sure that this is saved, so we have that information. And so far, so good. We are getting to where we need to be. Not too long, but like I said before, we've got to make sure that we get the information to the rooms, and then we want to extract the information back to the parameters. So that's why you see it here of this information flow so far. And so now, with all this information that we're going to be putting in, we got the variables, right, that we're going to connect. So we're going to connect this to value. Okay. All right. And then we're going to start connecting our family instances, right? As you can see here, elements, and making sure that that's all connected to have this last bit of piece going in. Got the names and everything else, as you can see here, making sure that all this is good. And with that being said, everything for me always turns into a story. I remember when I was working late on night on Revit, and I remember being saying, "Hey, you know what? I got this VDC meeting coming up, and I didn't have any room names. That everything that I did had to be something that was for a cause." And I just said, "Well, you know what? Maybe if I did the CAD, then I can overlay the Navisworks so I can do it that way." But then it was like, well, you know, why don't I actually just do the room names 3D? So that way I can have it not only just in Revit, but I can also have it in Navisworks to see these rooms. So that way it actually makes sense when I'm in a 3D view. And so that's actually how I came upon this anyway. Most of your scripts is going to be something like that. Build something not just for practice, but build something for practicality, meaning that you're going to be able to use this thing while you're for something that you actually need. Because at the end of the day, that is how you're trying to really, really get this going, right? And so, with that being said, you want to finish up your information here. You want to go ahead and get your information good. So, from a value standpoint, you want your place family. Just missing one more that I got to put in here. And so, let me go ahead and put this one called place family. So, this one's going to be last node, okay? This one's going to be for our family instance by point. So we got that here. And so now what we're going to do is just make sure that that goes into our nodes. So this one's going to go here in the element, right? Remember we talked about that. And then from our value standpoint, we're going to make sure that that goes into values, that goes into values, right? And then from a parameter name standpoint, we're now going to tie in our last bit for parameter name. Okay. So now let's make sure we save. And so what I want you to do, now that we've gotten our information, remember, this is what the information is going to pull right here. And then we've got this where it's going to be located. Now I'm going to go to my 3D view since we are seeing a parametric. What I want you guys to see is the information of your first script. So now here comes the fun part. We're going to go ahead and hit run. All right. And so what do you see? There you go. There is your first Dynamo script for something, like I said before, not just to practice, but practicality. All right. And so that's how I got mine, being able to want to use Navisworks for 3D coordination. But at the same time, want to make sure that this is really, really important for you to understand. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate you guys. And if you want anything else, like, subscribe, put what you want in the comments for me to cover, and we'll go further more into Dynamo, into Power BI, AI, you name it, we'll cover it. All right. Peace.